Hi, I'm Raylene, and welcome to Khaleesi Clues. This video may contain spoilers for those who are not familiar with the current and past HBO series House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, along with the fact that I may refer to any of the books by George R.R. Martin that pertain to his A Song of Ice and Fire storyline. Now that we are finally in Season 2 for House of the Dragon, Episode 2 is right around the corner. This entire season is going to fly by so fast. Before this Sunday's episode airs, I wanted to get this video out. I have to pre-warn you though, because I am actually on vacation right now, and so my time is very limited for editing and recording. This video may jump around quite a bit because it has a lot of information packed in it, discussing different subjects, but I seriously did not have the time to edit out and condense the information. So I'm just going to put it out there as I wrote it. So bear with me, please. Let me start by saying there is something I am really curious about, and that is the dragon Seasmoke. We seem to have a rather large dilemma. As we know, the Blacks and the Greens are on the brink of war. Daemon has already mentioned the necessity of putting every dragon available to use for the pending war with the Greens. That means Seasmoke will be needed and expected to join the battle. This happens to cause one huge problem for the show writers. Although everyone from Dorne to the Wall may think that Laenor Velaryon is dead, making Seasmoke a claimable dragon for a new writer, we all happen to know the truth. Laenor is actually still alive somewhere out there, living his best life with his love, Sir Qarl Corey. Where is the dear me maester when you need him? Dear me is right. We have a major problem, and Rhaenyra and Daemon are going to have a whole lot of explaining to do when Seasmoke refuses to take a new writer. On the other hand, what exactly are the showrunners going to do if Seasmoke actually accepts a new writer, with all of us knowing darn well that Laenor Velaryon is still alive? Now let me pause for a moment. Just in case there is anyone watching who does not already know, I will take a minute to explain a little bit about dragons and their dragon rider rules. Now, according to a wiki of Ice and Fire, which quotes its source from Fire and Blood, it states that once a dragon has bonded with a rider, that dragon will not allow anyone else to mount it alone while its rider lives, no matter how familiar said person might be to the dragon. When the rider of a dragon dies, that dragon can bond with a new rider. So that basically gives us a few options. The first one being that Laenor Velaryon will return to the series and help defend and protect Rhaenyra and their remaining children, Jace and Joffrey. I know you might be saying, but Jace and Joffrey are not his kids and are the bastards of Rhaenyra's ex-lover, Harwin Strong. In all reality, regardless if Jace and Joffrey are not his biological children, Laenor loved and claimed the boys as his children. He may not have been a perfect father, but he was still their father, and they loved him too. Proof of this is when Aemond stole Vhagar, and all the children got into a fight. Aemond grabbed Lucerys and told him that, "You will die screaming in flames, just as your father did," referring to the death of Harwin in the fire at Harrenhal. Little Lucerys' sad reaction of sobbing and saying, "My father's still alive." That little boy had no idea what Aemond was even referring to. In Lucerys' heart and mind, Laenor was his father. Now keep that scene in mind, because it could be a possible clue, and I'm going to circle back to it. As far as Laenor and Rhaenyra, they may have had an open relationship, but they still truly loved and cared for each other. The news of King Viserys' death, followed by the crowning of King Aegon, and now the death of Lucerys, must have reached Laenor by now, no matter where he was in Essos. I absolutely refuse to believe that upon hearing all of this news that Laenor would not return to help Rhaenyra, Daemon, and his children. Laenor has always been ready for a fight and is a skilled warrior. The problem with this option is, how in the world would Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Laenor explain the fact that he is still alive, that his death was a horrible lie that caused so much pain for their loved ones? Well, they could have him not return at all, but that wouldn't solve the issue with Seasmoke. They could have Seasmoke mysteriously accept another rider, which would then lead to Rhaenyra and Daemon to understand that Laenor must have died off-screen. That just seems a bit boring and unfulfilling, though. To my knowledge, I have not heard 100% confirmation one way or the other that Laenor will be returning this season. I did, however, find an article where the Daily Post claimed that he was spotted on set, so that does give me hope that we will see him once again. I do want to go back to the possible clue that I mentioned earlier. The scene is from Season 1, Episode 7, titled Driftmark, where Aemond fought with Lucerys, and the question of his parentage was brought up. Aemond was accusing him of being the son of Harwin Strong, who had been shown to have died in a fire at Harrenhal in Episode 6, titled The Princess and the Queen. I'm going to say something that is probably not going to be a popular opinion, but hear me out before you completely disregard the idea. I still have a lingering feeling that Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Valerion are all the legitimate children of Laenor and Rhaenyra, that they are not the bastard children born from the union of Rhaenyra and Harwin Strong. I know that the majority of you are thinking that the show completely proves otherwise. Stay with me, and maybe I can at least plant a seed of doubt in your mind. I think Aemond's line, "You will die screaming in flames, just as your father did," is not only a bit of foreshadowing of Lucerys' death, but also maybe telling of who his true father really is. First off, let me get one thing out of the way. I absolutely do not believe that Harwin Strong died in the fire at Harrenhal. I went over the clues in my previous video titled The Princess and the Queen. The clues are strong. As I have been saying throughout many of my videos, Larys Strong is an agent of chaos. His goal is to create chaos and division with the ultimate goal of war, leading to the death of dragons and their capable riders. I absolutely loved Harwin as a character, and it pains me to say this, but he was also a double agent working alongside Larys. You have to understand, there are two stories going on here, one taking place in the hidden clues or in the shadows, the other story being told on screen visually for all to see. This war between the Blacks and the Greens, or the War of the Five Kings later on down the road in Game of Thrones, is nothing in comparison to the real war that is on the brink of happening, and that is the war between life and death, the light and the night, the war of the gods, R'hllor and the Great Other. The Red War, red being the color for R'hllor, and is the real war to worry about, and that is a constant battle that is being played with each side making moves against each other. The Great Other side is working to create chaos, division among mankind, creating wars to make them destroy each other, poisoning and corrupting them. The main goal of the Great Other is to destroy the dragons. The dragons are the most powerful weapon for mankind and the only hope to fight the death and destruction that is coming in the final war. That, and also the prevention of the prophesied prince or princess that was promised to ever be born or to survive to fulfill their destiny. With all of that said, it is a very important mission to discredit and destroy Rhaenyra Targaryen's bloodline. Her bloodline leads to the eventual birth of Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. Harwin, as a double agent, had two jobs, and the first one was to get close to Rhaenyra, to make her fall in love with him so that it would hopefully prevent her from sleeping with Laenor and creating any children. Their open marriage was one of King's Landing's worst kept secrets, but I'm sure that Larys had absolutely nothing to do with that. Right. Harwin is what I would call a mule. He's most likely sterile. Plus, add in the fact that everyone knows that Laenor preferred men. They may not even realize that Rhaenyra and Laenor still performed their duty, consummated their marriage, and continued trying to have children throughout their marriage. So of course, the fingers are going to be pointing and the rumors are going to be flying when the babies are born. Harwin's second job was to get his hands on a dragon egg. I can say that I believe he accomplished both missions, and once he did, he was pulled from his assignment and they faked his death at Harrenhal. That's why Larys was shown in the black cells getting men to use as body doubles for the death of Harwin and Lionel. Burned beyond anyone's recognition, who would question their death? Well, I guess besides me. Then we also have jealous Queen Alicent with all of her horrible comments regarding the children's physical appearance of not having the traditional Targaryen white hair. You have to understand her reasoning behind trying to discredit Rhaenyra's children is her own selfish hidden ambition of wanting to have her children placed on the throne. I have to throw in here also that I think that is the reason why the show changed the color of Princess Rhaenys's hair color from black to blonde. It's easier to forget or discard when reading the books that Jace, Luke, and Joff's grandmother had black hair. It's a lot harder to forget on screen. So if Princess Rhaenys had her black hair as noted in the books, then one would understand that the grandchildren had picked up that trait from her. If you notice, none of the boys have completely straight hair like Rhaenyra or Viserys either. They all have waves and curls to their hair, which they inherited from who I believe may be their true father, Laenor Velaryon. Now, as for the color of their skin, just because their complexion is more in line with their mother Rhaenyra's, does not mean that they are not Laenor's children. Laenor's own complexion is very fair due to his mother's genes that he inherited. There are many children who are born with pale complexions, even though their parents have contrasting skin tones. Of course, George R.R. Martin is going to make it tough on the readers and viewers by making Harwin have the dark, curly hair, very similar to the boys. That is done deliberately to persuade your opinions. But if you notice, none of the boys have taken on the size of height of Harwin Strong's physique either. Although it is hard to say because they are still quite young. So in my opinion, none of the physical characteristics really rule out either one of the men as the boy's true father. Rhaenyra being sexually active with both Harwin and Laenor also does not rule out either one of the men as the boy's true father. But I believe one line from Aemond may just be the thing that plays a role in deciding who is the boy's true father, and I think the show may give us that revelation in the coming episodes, but our eyes have to be open to actually understanding the hidden clues. Let's review and dissect Aemond's comment. You will die screaming in flames just like your father. Let's start with the first part of his comment. You will die. Well, that part is obviously right because Luke died at the end of last season. Second part of his statement, screaming in flames. Luke did not die screaming in flames, but that line can be interpreted differently with a little bit of wordplay and symbolism. The word flames can be symbolism for a dragon. Dragons have been described as fire made flesh, very comparable to what I would call a flame. They also happen to breathe fire out their mouths, so I think they can easily be considered a flame. Just a special note here, when they talk about the doom of Valyria and the 14 flames erupting, I have often wondered if it is referring to 14 dragons erupting in war, like a past dance of dragons, possibly even going as far as being a symbolic trial of 7, with 7 dragons fighting 7 other dragons. That part is totally off subject, but it just gives you an idea of how words can be used as symbolism to describe different things with a little bit of imagination. So with that type of symbolism, one could say that Luke died in a flame because he literally died inside Vhagar's mouth, which is just so horrible. Now, as far as the final part of Aemon's statement is, just like your father, again, as far as I'm concerned, we have not seen the death of Harwin or Laenor yet. So here is my idea. I think if the show does have Laenor return, that they will literally bring him back for a death scene. His return will have to come by boat because he's not like he can fly back on sea smoke since he left him behind. That is where I think we will get his death scene. There are a couple of scenes that I need to mention, one from Game of Thrones and one more recent from House of the Dragon. Starting with the House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 1, titled A Son for a Son. The scene is where they captured Mysaria. It was a rather odd shot and seemed rather wasted to me at the time, which always makes me think there is a reason for that shot. The ships are closing in on the one containing Mysaria, and then it switches to inside the empty boat being captured, and you hear, "Prepare to be boarded," with this big heavy plank or bridge type device that latches onto the boat for the men to cross over. Very similar to the scene from Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 2, titled Stormborn, when Euron Greyjoy boards Yara's ship to capture her. Euron's scene definitely looks like the mouth of a dragon latching on to Yara's ship. So if by any chance the show brings Laenor back by ship, and it happens to get attacked and boarded like so many of the ships right now, and he just happens to be in the way of that device, it might just crush him in its grips, very similar to Vhagar chomping down on Lucerys in Arrax. Even if Laenor dies from an arrow during the attack, the bolt of an arrow looks very similar to the shape of a tooth. Who knows, maybe he will be shot by an arrow, pinning him to the wall of the boat, and then crushed by a plank. That just sounds so horrible. Seriously, why do I even think of these crazy things? But anyways, if we get something like that in the coming episodes, that would completely convince me that Laenor is 100% the true father of the 3 boys. By the way, I just noticed Laenor's lover's name may also be a clue to his death. Qarl Corre is Laenor's lover. George has chosen a unique spelling for that. Qarl for Carl. Typically, you would spell it C or Karl, but George has chosen Qarl. Q making the qu sound. Adding ARL, you get a new word, quarrel, which by definition means a square-headed bolt or arrow, especially for a crossbow. His last name is Corey, but if you divide it apart, you get Cor and Ray. Now the definition for Cor can be heart, and Ray can be light. So just by Qarl's name signifies disaster for Laenor. His lover's name literally is like a crossbow to the heart, which would extinguish his light or life. So I guess we will just have to wait and see what happens on the show. Another interesting thought, if Harwin is alive as I suspect, and he truly was the father as he was pretending to be for the viewer's sake, then wouldn't he return in a rage after hearing about the death of Lucerys? We shall see who shows up in the future episodes. I really have to wrap this video up. If you would like to show your support for my channel, you can like, comment, share, or subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day.